Joined now by the former executive producer, Hockey Night in Canada, the co-host of the Bob McCown podcast. It's the one and only John Shannon back with Sekeres and Price. Were you not entertained?
Oh, are you kidding me? I was entertained. I was waiting for Russell Crowe to show up. I mean, and you know, here's the thing I would say to Canuck fans. Don't worry about it. This is not a major catastrophe. Saturday against Winnipeg, Monday in St. Paul. You know, this team has really not faced much adversity at all this season. And this is not a bad time of year to face it as you prepare for, you know, the stretch and the playoffs. They're in a really good spot. The team has to learn how to lose, and in order to then compensate and figure out how to win properly. I loved what Rick said after the game. That you know, he wasn't angry. He was frustrated, I'm sure. But that to me is I think this is an important part of the season as a learning curve for this team that is, quite frankly, relatively young.
Well, that's our poll question today. Do you trust the Canucks to handle adversity? It sounds like you're saying yes, John.
Well, what I'm saying is there, what's the third one? Maybe. What I'm saying is if they can manage through this, then they'll be fine. And I do think they will be fine. I do think there's enough veteran leadership amongst the Millers of the world. But this is really important for Pettersson to go through. This is important for Quinn Hughes to go through. Not everything is rosy all the time. I mean, just as a complete aside, the first 2 years Jaromir Jagr, who had his number retired on Sunday, was in the National Hockey League. The Penguins won the Stanley Cup. I think he figured they'd go to the Stanley Cup every year. You know, and so this is the first time for a lot of these young guys that they are at they're a target on their back. They're at the top of the table. You know, you better get used to it and you better learn from it.
It's also hard to go 82 games at the top of your game. The only teams that I can think of that have really done that successfully in the last 25 years, the Red Wings went crazy that 1 year where they had single-digit losses, and then the Bruins last year, 2 years ago, where they were
last
amazing?
Year the Bruins, and several years ago, of course, Tampa.
I mean, and generally those teams, certainly the Red Wings, certainly the Bruins, had players that have been there and done that and knew how to do that. This is a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed team. It would have been a big ask to have 82 games at a 730 winning percentage.
Well, and 82 games. How about 4 years? You know, and one of the reasons I think you guys have me on is always to talk about history. The New York Islanders.
Yeah.
The New York Islanders in the 70s, people were impatient with them when they lost to Toronto, when they lost to the Rangers the following year and prepared themselves to win 4 consecutive Stanley Cups. The Edmonton Oilers lost in 82 to the Los Angeles Kings in that first round series, the miracle on Manchester, and then lost the Islanders in 83 in order to be ready to win 4 and 5. This is a reality of what goes on in the National Hockey League. And this is, what Rick Tocchet always talks about is process. This is process.
Learning lessons is what he calls them too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Funny thing is he mentions that Islanders lost to the Leafs, the Lanny McDonald goal. That might still be the biggest, most recent goal in Leafs history.
Yeah.
46 years later.
No,
I'm not sure the Leafs have had a bigger goal than Lanny against the Islanders.
Now you're showing your age. Come on.
Really?
Where are you going, Doug Gilmour?
Gilmour? I guess Gilmour.
I think Doug Gilmour against Curtis Joseph, which, by the way, as another total aside, when I worked for the Maple Leafs, because they signed Curtis Joseph, we weren't allowed to show the goal in the arena.
Oh, my God.
But I would also say that, remember that the Maple Leafs under Pat Quinn were a team that did get to the NHL Stanley Cup semifinal.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Steve Thomas overtime goal in Game 2 against Buffalo, I think that was a pretty big goal that people have forgotten.
Listen,
They lost that series. They lost that series, though. And
I know, but
to Steve Shields, no less.
would you guys stop talking
I'm
Leafs
sorry.
here?
Okay,
Stop it. Stop it. One game's not going to change the Canucks' trajectory or
I was
decision
trying to
making.
get Pat Quinn in the conversation.
There you go. Thank you.
Quinn is the tie that binds.
Okay, that's right.
One game's not going to change anybody's minds, but one game can be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So, management's not going to see that game and say, okay, now we've got to go get blah, blah. But they might have been thinking strongly about acquiring so-and-so, and then that game happens and they'd be like, absolutely, we need to get him now. Is that Chris Tanev? Do you think they would ever think like that, where that's the straw that breaks the camel's back and they absolutely feel the need to get some experience to get more defensive stopping?
I don't think it changed any plan that Patrik and Jim have.
Yeah.
I think that they know exactly what they think they need. They are trying to work it out, whether that's Chris Tanev, whether that's another defenseman. I think that, this is the way this group works. Identify the need, go identify the product, and try to connect dots. So. I think if you look at a single game or two games for a sample size to say we're going to go in this direction now, I think that's a huge mistake, and I think that Jim Rutherford would never do that.
How do you feel, because the narrative is out there about the Canucks against the best teams in the league?
1-5, I think, against the top 5, correct? Is
right,
that the number?
right. But 7-6-1 against the top 10. So it kind of depends on where you draw the line, where you want to make the tier. Yes, they have lost to Vegas. They have lost to Colorado. They have lost to Winnipeg. They have lost to Boston. If you expand that to include the Rangers of the world, the Carolinas, the Floridas, the Torontos, they look a lot better than that. But where are you in terms of how confidence level on the Canucks versus some of the best teams in the league? Drawing the line wherever you see fit, Mr. Shannon.
Yeah, I think I go back to what the next 27 games are supposed to bring. This team's going to make the playoffs. This team is on the verge of learning how to play the game properly, and this is this learning time. I'm not worried about 7-6-1 in February. I'm worried about when there are no score and no games played the middle of April. This team can win. This team can play that way. They just have to bear down and deal with what Tocchet and Foote and Gonchar and Yo want. And so I think that's what the rest of the regular season is all about. If we take these numbers in a certain way and say, well, they can't do this. Are you kidding me? This team scores more goals than anybody else in the National Hockey League. It has become a really effective 5-on-5 team. Are we concerned about the penalty kill? Yeah, we're concerned about the penalty kill. But they have time to work on that. Are you concerned about Quinn Hughes and Philip Hronek? No, I'm not concerned about them. Are you concerned about Thatcher Demko? No, I'm not concerned about him. I don't think you can take it in these small sample sizes and worry about situations. Tell me at the end of the year, and if they've lost in 5 games in the first round, then that's worth a discussion. But I just don't see that. I really don't. Mm-hmm. I think we're doing a little bit of Chick Little in Vancouver when we do that, at a time when this game should be celebrated.
I think you're absolutely right. Here is something I am a little bit concerned about, and I'd like both of your feedback on it. I am concerned about them playing in hostile environments in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I say that potentially I'm scarred for a couple of reasons. Number one, the players on this team who do have postseason experience have it in a bubble in empty arenas, right? Like it was an empty Rogers, place in Edmonton.
Yeah.
It was not in a hostile environment. And what can a hostile environment do in the postseason? Well, that's the 2011 Canucks and Roberto Luongo and that fantastic team that absolutely spit the bit in 3 games.
Well, that's for some of the young core guys like Bluger and Lindholm and others.
But that's what I mean. I mean, your top players, the guys who will be logging most of the ice time. Fair, unfair? What says the two of you?
I think you're scarred. I think your Canuck lens, and for good reason.
Impending doom.
For good reason,
as Donnie says. John?
I think you're looking a little too closely, Matt. I really do. I mean, there will be no more hostile environment than what you saw yesterday at XL Energy Center. That's part of what they're going to be going through now. That really is. These guys have played in tough places before. Not necessarily in this country. When Pearson plays for Sweden at home, I don't see that as an issue. And by the way, on the other side, there may not be a better home ice advantage in the National Hockey League than Rogers Arena for the Vancouver Canucks. So there's a positive side of that as well. So I think we might be drilling a little too deep on that.
And remember, JT Miller played 3 rounds with the Tampa Bay Lightning in 1 year, 4 rounds in total. He went 2 rounds deep with the Rangers once, 3 rounds deep with the Rangers another time. Like he's got playoff experience.
Yeah,
I'm more concerned about health than I am crowds.
Of course. Speaking of Dakota Joshua, and he leaves the lineup after a career game, and they've lost both of them. I think it's telling us what Dakota Joshua means.
I tell you what, I was so disappointed about that because I thought on Saturday night, and you guys got a sense of Saturday with the Jets, I thought we were going to see the best third line in hockey at times go toe-to-toe. When you see Bluger, Garland, and Joshua against Lowry, Appleton, and Niederreiter, I thought that was going to be one of the great sub-stories on Saturday. And I think you got a sense of it when you saw what Adam Lowry did on Saturday night. That's exactly, those are tough. Those guys are tough to find. And that's, in many ways, Dakota Joshua is a little bit of the Adam Lowry for the Vancouver Canucks. And they better hope he gets back sooner than later.
Lowry's an absolute beast.
Yeah. No, I have him on my team. And I thought he was an inspired choice, too, as captain. We all know Dave very well, and we know the character of Dave Lowry, and I think that Adam Lowry is just a chip off the old block.
4 or 5 on threes. Have you ever seen anything quite like that? I mean, we've got indelible memories of Sammy Salo in the playoffs for the Vancouver Canucks against the Sharks, but even that wasn't 4 or 5 on threes.
4 or 5 on threes without a major, which to me was. Because I actually yesterday afternoon I was juggling a few shows and a few games, and so I saw the first of the 6, the one at the end of the second period to make it 5-3, and then went away from the Canuck game. And somebody actually sent a text saying the Canucks have imploded. So I had to go back and rewind and watch it all, and then I had to go back to the summary and look at all the penalties and say, "Holy smokes! It's not nobody got thrown out." No game misconducts, but delay a game penalty, which is a fact of life, nothing you can do about it. And as Tocchet said after the game, too many silly stick fouls, and you got to watch it. And the rest was history. How many? When you get a hat trick and 2 of them are off a skate, come on. Some of it's a little bit of luck too.
Oh, totally. They had some bad luck working against them there as well. And you know what? Consciously or subconsciously, refs do manage games. Again, whether that is conscious or not, I don't know.
I don't think it's embarrassing to say consciously. Sure they do.
So it is a little stunning that it got to 4 or 5 on threes, because I don't think that the refs enjoy doing that.
No, but that's why the Miller penalty of all that was they had no choice. They had no choice.
Right.
The others are subjective. That one was objective.
Yeah.
How's that, Maddie? That's my English.
There you go. That's why you're teaching.
Damn good, John.
That's why he's teaching.
By the way, in my teaching, I use too many metaphors, just for the record. So.
Last question from me. Will Vegas or Edmonton in the Pacific Division take as big a swing as the Canucks have trade deadline wise on Elias Lindholm? Do you expect to see a similar level player added by either of those hockey clubs between now and March 8th?
Well, I mean, nothing would surprise me with the Golden Knights. I mean, Kelly now has the reputation of swinging for not only the inside fence, but the outside fence. I mean, it's swinging to get the ball out of the stadium. How's that? There's my metaphor for the day.
He's like Steph Curry. He's taking the half-court three-pointers these days.
I'm sure Kelly's got like 5 plans right now on the whiteboard and trying to figure out how to do the third-party deal because they don't have enough cap space if they're the guy that they want is out there. I think Edmonton will be a little more methodical about it. I do think they're going to try to improve their hockey club. The question becomes: do you want to do it in your top 6 or your bottom 6? And right now, the top 6 is pretty darn good with the way they're going. And really, one of the best stories in Edmonton, particularly now, is the comeback season of Evander Kane. You know, Evander Kane now, all of a sudden, Evander Kane has 20 goals. And so if you expect that scoring touch to continue for Kane through the rest of the season, and if the answer is yes, then you can probably not spend as much time worrying about the top 6 as you're trying to find another depth forward to try to help in the penalty kill, to try to help continue a little bit more of what's going on the Ryan McLeod line or the Derek Ryan line.
Who were the 3 Kings who had the hat trick?
Curry, Robitaille.
Okay, stop right there.
And Mike Donald.
Very good, John Shannon.
Yeah.
See, we
Mike
do bring you on for history. You remember Mike Donnelly, a 3-time 20-goal scorer in the National Hockey League, the last time we saw 3 hat tricks in a game.
And Luc Robitaille, people like Luc Robitaille could score. I mean, he was an amazing goal scorer. He
Couldn't
really
skate, wasn't that big, late round draft pick, but boy, could he find the back.
And by the way, when he got to LA, couldn't speak English.
Yeah.
You know, lived at Marcel Dion's house and learned how to speak English from Marcel Dion. So neither of them can speak English still. So it's great.
And he's gotten marginally better in 40 years, and yet he is still the toast of town there in Los Angeles.
Absolutely.
What energy he brings. Wonderful stuff, John. Thanks for this. Catch up next week.
Cheers, boys.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.